Welcome to your introduction to the Focaccia bucket. So in the bucket, on your lid, you will see you have the ingredients and the steps you take to make your focaccia. You have your scoop, your measure and your spoon, and you have your bucket with your water line on it. So it is always easier to fill the bucket with the measure away from you rather than to you, because you don't have to stoop down to look at it. You can actually look and see when it hits your water line. So there we go. So firstly we add in our yeast. So when we put our yeast in, you want to sprinkle your yeast. So you don't want it all to go in one big plop. It's just a gentle sprinkle, and the yeast will float on the top of the water. If you drop it in one big scoop, what will happen is water will fall around the yeast, and the yeast in the middle actually won't get wet at all. Then we put in our sugar, and again sprinkle, and you'll see you're sprinkling the sugar, it's resting on the yeast and then it's pulling the yeast down. So that's exactly what we want to see. And then we will do the salt, and in the exact same way we give it a sprinkle, and then we put in our olive oil. So we're using 4 tablespoons of olive oil, which is the equivalent of a quarter of a cup, but just to keep everything together we use this 4 times. 4. And then what I generally do is I just give it a little stir, just get everything incorporated. So now we get our flour, and I'm looking for 5 level scoops of flour. So you're not packing the flour. Scoop, and I use the back of my stirrer just to level off. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the last one. And I do encourage you to count them, because even counting to 5 we can lose count sometimes if the phone rings or somebody says something and you're like, am I on 3 or 4, or am I on 4 or 5? Now the final part then for preparing the dough is just to get everything mixed together. So you want to make sure that all the flour is wet and you've really mixed it well. So as you're mixing, you'll see that there are kind of dry bits on the side. I just like to scrape those down. So you're getting all that flour in. And then finally, you'll see that there are dry bits of flour on top. Just keep lifting it up, because you'll see it's still very wet here on the bottom. And what we're looking for is one very wet dough. Now, you don't need to touch the dough or lift it up or do anything with it. It is a very, very sticky dough. So I just did the last bit, get it there. So this will now proof for 2 to 4 hours. When the dough has come between these 2 points, you know it's ready for proofing. If you have a warm place or a dry place, you can put it there. You can keep the lid on. There's a hole in the lid so that the dough can breathe, and we'll come back and I'll show you the next steps from there. Okay, so our dough has proofed. It is now between our 2 lines, so we're ready to transfer it to our pan. This will be the start of point 8 in the recipe. So we have our pan ready, we have our dough. So we're going to just take the lid off, and then we're going to put in our olive oil. So we want to give a generous coating to the entire surface of whatever pan you're using. So I will always tip it around just to make sure that the entire surface is covered. So right now you have a very wet dough, and you can see the way it wobbles around because that's all those lovely air bubbles we have in there. So what I do is I press my hand, so my hand now is covered in oil, and literally I'm just going to tip the dough out. That's it. Very, very little handling, and then I'll have my other hand in, and then we just flip the dough over, so I'm getting it completely coated in oil, and then with my knuckles I'm just spreading it out, and I want to cover the surface of the pan. So really what you want to make sure is that everything is level, so you don't really have too high points in it, because if you do, when you go to bake it, they will just bake higher than the rest of it. So you want to try and keep it as even as possible. And you'll find when you push it, it contracts a little bit. Let it do that and then push it off again. And if you're not exactly in all the corners, it doesn't matter, because it's going to fill up and proof out there, and you're also going to do a second proof on this. So now we put this aside for another kind of 20 to 40 minutes. We'll let it rise again, and then we'll put our indentations into it. Our focaccia has now rested. I think I left it for about 30 minutes, and see how it's very, very wobbly. So that's what you want. So what we're going to do is we're going to put some indentations in it, and then we're going to top it with some of our focaccia seasoning and some Asiago. So you can use Asiago, Parmesan, any kind of a hard cheese. If you use something like mozzarella, in the length of time it takes this to bake, the mozzarella would burn, so you don't want to go down that road. So all I'm doing is pressing in, and what that's doing is it's leaving me little wells of dough or of oil, and as they cook, that's what will crispen up the outside of our focaccia. And if you want to add a little more olive oil, you can do that as well. Just a little drizzle. There we go. You can see all those little wells filling up. I am not cleaning my hand is on my apron, because somebody gave out to me for doing that. We're not going to say who, Angela, but you know, I feel like I'm turning into Brick from a TV show. A kid who talks to himself like that. I don't know what it's called. Okay, so you want a nice covering of your focaccia seasoning, and you know, and with this, you know, this is it's basically Italian seasoning with garlic powder. But you know, I mean, if you like things a little bit more garlicky, put on some more garlic. If you want some onion powder, you know, if you want to go mad and put in some paprika or whatever, you know, whatever is floats your boat for this. And then with the Asiago, and again, we're not going crazy on it. We're giving a nice kind of coating on it, but it's not a pizza. We're not trying to get it all cheesy, because this won't melt. It'll just actually cook. So I'm going to put this into the oven at 450 for 20 minutes, and we'll have a lovely focaccia. This is our focaccia just out of the oven, and it's you can see it's just run a little hot. So I'll just let it see. I can see it's already out from the sides. So this was in our oven. This was 18 minutes at 325. Take it out. All the oil is absorbed into the focaccia. You can hear how crispy that is. I'd let this cool down for at least kind of 15 or 20 minutes before we go to eat it. And again, lovely, just cut into pieces just to eat as a dip or a side. Also makes a fantastic sandwich. You just cut it horizontal, and we'll see how that looks in a few minutes. You can see you get a lovely, nice soft dough, crunchy outside, crunchy at the bottom, on the top, and again, it's the olive oil that allows you to do that. Works really well just if you want to